In October 1944, inside a prisoner camp in the American South, hundreds of Japanese prisoners stood in line for morning roll call. Heads down, eyes forward. Silence was survival. Kenji Sato had learned that rule the hard way. Then, without warning, he saw her, walking beside an American officer, wearing a clean uniform, carrying a clipboard. His wife, the woman he had not seen in 5 years. The woman he believed was either dead or thousands of miles away. Their eyes met for half a second. Kenji's heart stopped. He waited for her to smile, to react, to show any sign that she recognized him. She didn't. She looked past him, as if he were a stranger. And in that moment, Kenji realized something terrifying. Finding her had not saved him. It might have destroyed them both. For the rest of that morning, Kenji could not focus. The numbers were called. The guards shouted orders. Boots scraped against gravel. He heard none of it. All he could see was her face. The same face he had memorized before the war. The same eyes that used to watch him leave for work every morning. The same voice that used to whisper his name in the dark. And yet when she looked at him, there was nothing. No shock. No relief. No recognition. Just emptiness. That night, lying on his thin mattress, Kenji replayed the moment again and again. Had she truly not recognized him, or had she recognized him instantly and chosen to pretend she hadn't? Was she angry? Had she moved on? Was she afraid? Or was something far more dangerous forcing her to stay silent? Because in this camp, nothing was accidental. Every movement was watched. Every conversation was recorded. Every mistake was punished. And if she was pretending not to know him, then she was doing it for a reason that could cost both of them everything. To understand why her silence mattered, you have to understand where Kenji was standing. This was not just a prison. It was a machine. During World War II, the United States built hundreds of prisoner-of-war camps across the country, surrounded by fences, watched by towers, governed by rule books thicker than most novels. Every prisoner had a file. Every action was recorded. Every conversation could be reported. Japanese prisoners were watched especially closely. Many American officers believed they were more likely to resist, escape, or cause trouble. So punishments were harsher. Surveillance was tighter. Trust was rare. If a prisoner was caught forming unauthorized relationships with staff, the consequences were immediate. Isolation, loss of privileges, forced labor, transfer to harsher camps, sometimes worse. And for workers inside the camp, the risks were just as real. Anyone suspected of sympathizing with prisoners could be fired, interrogated, or investigated. For Japanese American staff, the danger was even greater. One accusation could mean being labeled disloyal. One rumor could destroy an entire family. In this world, love was not just forbidden, it was dangerous. So when Kenji's wife looked through him like he didn't exist, she wasn't just protecting herself. She might have been protecting him from something far worse than heartbreak. Before he was prisoner number 4172, before he was a uniform, before he was a file in a cabinet, Kenji Sato was just a quiet young man from a fishing town near Yokohama. He grew up waking before sunrise to help his father repair nets. He learned early that patience mattered more than strength, that storms passed, that hard work kept families alive. He never planned to be a soldier. He wanted to run a small shop near the harbor, sell tools, fix radios, come home every evening to his wife. Her name was Aiko. They met when she spilled tea on his notebook at a neighborhood meeting. He apologized. She laughed. They were married a year later. No big ceremony, just family, rice balls, paper lanterns, and promises whispered in low voices. Kenji kept every one of those promises, even in the camp. Every night, he folded his blanket the same way Aiko had taught him. Corners sharp, no wrinkles. He saved part of his bread whenever he could, for a woman who wasn't there. He still spoke to her in his thoughts, still imagined her voice when the lights went out. And now, she was standing 10 meters away from him, alive, and pretending he didn't exist. Kenji and Aiko's life together was never dramatic. That was what made it beautiful. Mornings at the harbor, shared lunches wrapped in cloth, evenings listening to the radio and guessing tomorrow's weather. They argued about small things, money, space, whether windows should stay open at night. They always made up before sleeping because they believed time was something you protected. Then, in 1941, the radio stopped playing music. It started playing speeches, warnings, marching songs, the harbor filled with uniforms. Friends disappeared. Letters arrived with official stamps. Kenji's came in January 1942, a thin envelope, heavy with meaning. He was being sent south with his unit. Just for a few months, he told Aiko. I'll be back before winter. They stood on the platform the morning he left. She held his hand so tightly his fingers went numb. He joked about it. She didn't laugh. That was the last time he saw her face without fear in it. In the Philippines, everything went wrong. Supplies ran out, planes stopped coming, orders stopped making sense, and then surrender, marches, hunger, disease. By late 1942, Kenji was no longer a soldier. He was cargo. Shipped across oceans, tagged with numbers, delivered to a foreign land he had never imagined. America. Aiko never received his last letter. It vanished somewhere between islands and borders. For 2 years, she heard nothing. No confirmation, no grave, no goodbye. And somewhere inside her, a terrible question began to grow. Was he alive? Or had she already become a widow without knowing it? By 1944, Kenji understood the rules of captivity better than he understood English. Wake up when told. Stand where told. Speak only when spoken to. The camp decided when he ate, when he worked, when he slept, when he was allowed to think about being human. He labored in fields and warehouses under armed supervision, 12 hours some days, in heat that burned through cloth and skin. Complaints went nowhere. Questions invited suspicion, and suspicion led to punishment. Kenji had seen it happen. A man who whispered too much, another who wrote letters too often, one who smiled at a guard, all transferred, all broken. Meanwhile, Aiko was fighting a different war. After Pearl Harbor, everything Japanese became dangerous. Names, language, faces. Her family was questioned. Their home was searched. Their loyalty was measured by strangers. When she was offered work as a translator and clerk, she accepted out of necessity, not choice. The job meant food, safety, protection for her parents, but it also meant silence. Every report she typed was reviewed. Every conversation was noted. Every personal connection was forbidden. She learned quickly. Feelings were liabilities. Memory was dangerous. Love could ruin you. So when she saw Kenji in that line, thin, pale, wearing a number instead of a name, she did the only thing the system allowed. She erased herself. After that first morning, Kenji began noticing things he had never paid attention to before. Where she walked, who she spoke to, how often she passed through the compound, and how carefully she avoided him. First week. She crossed the yard every afternoon with reports. Kenji timed his steps so they would pass within arm's length. Once, she brushed his sleeve. He felt it for hours. She did not look at him. Second week. He heard her voice translating for an officer. Soft, calm, exactly as he remembered. He closed his eyes and nearly forgot where he was. She never once said his name. Third week. A prisoner whispered that 2 workers had been questioned for emotional involvement. Another said a man had been transferred after talking too much. Fear spread faster than news. Kenji stopped trying to meet her eyes. Fourth week. A guard noticed him watching her. Noticed the hesitation in his step, the way he slowed when she passed. That night, his name was called. He stood in the dirt for 2 hours as punishment. No explanation, no appeal. A warning without words. After that, he kept his head down. But inside, he was breaking, because every day he saw proof that she was alive. And every day he was forced to pretend she was not. The truth reached Kenji by accident. One evening, while cleaning a storage room, he overheard 2 American clerks talking. They didn't know he understood enough English to follow their words. They were complaining about paperwork, about investigations, about that Japanese girl who keeps getting reported. One of them laughed. "She's under review again," he said. "Somebody thinks she's too soft on the prisoners." The other shook his head. "If they find anything personal, she's finished." Finished how? Job gone. Family questioned. Maybe worse. Kenji froze. He understood immediately. Aiko wasn't pretending. She was performing. Every blank look, every cold gesture, every moment of silence. It was an act meant to keep them both alive. And suddenly, the pain he had been carrying alone split in two, because now he knew. She was suffering just as much as he was, only quietly, only in public, only where no one could see. After that night, Kenji stopped waiting for recognition. He started thinking about consequences. If he spoke to her, she could lose everything. If he stayed silent, he would lose himself. Every morning, he rehearsed words in his head. Simple words. Are you safe? Do you have enough food? Do you still remember me? He never said them. Aiko was fighting her own battle. She knew he was watching. She knew he understood now. And that made it harder, because every instinct in her wanted to run to him, to touch his face, to tell him she had never stopped waiting. But she also knew what would happen. The investigations would come, the accusations would follow, her parents would be questioned, their neighbors would be watched, and Kenji would be punished. So she made a decision no one should have to make. She chose silence over honesty, distance over comfort, safety over love, and Kenji chose it with her, even though it was tearing him apart. The moment came without warning. In February 1945, a flu outbreak swept through the camp. Dozens of prisoners collapsed within days. Fever, weakness, delirium. Kenji was one of them. He tried to keep working, tried to stay invisible. Then one afternoon, he fell face first into the dirt. When he opened his eyes, he was lying on a narrow bed in the infirmary. White walls, harsh light, the smell of disinfectant. Voices moved around him. Doctors, clerks, and then hers. Soft, controlled, shaking just slightly. Aiko stood beside his bed, holding a clipboard. No guards nearby. No officers watching, just two people who had once promised each other forever. She checked his chart with trembling fingers, pretended to read, pretended not to see him looking at her. Finally, she whispered without moving her lips, "You're alive." He smiled weakly. "So are you." For 10 seconds they spoke in fragments, not sentences, not explanations, just proof of existence. I waited. I know, I never forgot. Neither did I. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. She stepped back instantly, mask on, voice cold. "Patient stable," she announced. "Return him to his barracks." And just like that, their secret vanished again. Kenji recovered, slowly, weakly, changed. After the infirmary, something inside him had shifted. He no longer hoped for reunion. He hoped only for survival. 2 months later, his name appeared on a transfer list. No explanation, no warning. One morning, he was placed on a truck with 20 other prisoners and driven away from the camp. Aiko was not there to see him leave. She was told only after it happened. Through a memo, through a stamp, through bureaucracy. Prisoner reassigned, 3 words. The end of their daily glimpses, their silent conversations, their stolen moments. Kenji was moved north, closer to the coast, closer to repatriation, but farther from her than he had ever been. Aiko stayed, finished the war in offices and clinics. Translating orders she hated, filing reports she never read twice. When victory was announced in August 1945, people celebrated. Bells rang, flags waved. She sat alone in her room and cried, because the war had ended and taken him with it. Kenji returned to Japan in early 1946. He stepped off the ship thinner than when he had left, older than his years, carrying memories no one asked about. His hometown had changed. Buildings were gone. Friends were missing. The harbor was quiet. He rebuilt his life slowly, opened a small repair shop near the water, fixed radios, listened to voices from far away, and sometimes wondered if he was listening too. Aiko never returned to Japan. After the war, she helped her parents resettle on the West Coast. She worked as a translator for immigrants who were trying to start over. She married once. It didn't last. Some silences never leave you. They never saw each other again. No reunion, no photographs, no public story, only memory. In 1968, Kenji received a letter with no return address. Inside was a single sentence, written in careful handwriting, "I never forgot." He kept that letter folded inside his wallet for the rest of his life. Because war doesn't only destroy cities, it teaches people how to pretend, how to survive by hiding love, how to choose silence over truth, and sometimes the bravest thing anyone ever does is remember.